Hey everyone, excited to be back for this week's edition of Frequently Asked Questions for Commercial Real Estate. In today's video, what I wanted to do was talk about a topic that came up recently in my discussion with a newer agent of ours, and that is what is the difference between an LOI, a letter of intent, and a PSA, or also known as purchase and sale agreement. Now, this is a very important distinction to understand such that you can best advise your clients on how to best proceed with the transaction. So in this video, we're going to explain the differences between the two documents and provide use cases as to when one would be preferential to the other. And hopefully you can take this information and allow yourself to be able to use the appropriate document for the appropriate transaction that you are dealing with. Now, before I dive this video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you can like and subscribe to this channel. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can hear this message and learn about the many facets of commercial real estate. So now you've done that, go ahead and like and subscribe below. Let's go ahead and dive into this episode. All right. So one of the very basic ideas of our commercial real estate brokerage profession is the distinction between a letter of intent and a purchase and sale agreement. So regarding a letter of intent, the premise itself is that a letter of intent is a non-binding agreement that outlines the basic terms of a deal. So think of a letter of intent as a handshake before a contract. So you define what the price is going to be. If you're talking about a purchase, if you want to buy the property, for example, you may define what the price is going to be. You may define how long the due diligence process is going to take. You may provide financing or other relevant points to consider within the agreement, like how long you're going to have as far as financing contingency. Is it going to be a cash deal? Are you going to seek financing, and for what terms? And there may be some other major deal points to consider. If there's any seller carryback in a purchase agreement, that should be stipulated within that letter of intent. It may also highlight within that agreement that during the period of the letter of intent, once it's all signed, that the seller will operate in good faith with the proposed buyer to not market or potentially go into other negotiations with other parties during that period of time. But again, I want to reemphasize that the letter of intent is a non-binding agreement. So in theory, both parties can decide to walk away, and there's no true legal obligation. And again, I want to preface this by saying I'm not an attorney, so it's always important to actually have a conversation with an attorney. But the premise is it's a non-binding agreement, whereas with a purchase and sale agreement, that is a binding agreement. That document is going to clearly stipulate the terms with which both parties are agreeing to. So it's going to clearly stipulate if there's an earnest money deposit, who's going to hold the earnest money deposit. It's going to stipulate what the pricing is going to be. It's going to stipulate the due diligence time frame and terms of the due diligence time frame. So it's going to explain all those different nuances. And then it's also going to highlight a variety of different other points that are relevant to the transaction. And within that agreement, once both parties sign on the dotted line, that is a legally binding agreement. So if one party becomes in default of the agreement, the other party has the right to be able to pursue damages from the party that was in default. So it is very important to understand that when you enter into a purchasing and sale agreement, that is a legally binding agreement that has ramifications if you don't follow the stipulations within that document. So typically when you're dealing with letters of intent versus purchase and sale agreements, I usually recommend that, especially when you're dealing, let's take it in both contexts, both the leasing side and then the sales side. So in the leasing side, I almost always recommend that tenants start out with sending a letter of intent to a buyer or to a landlord, I should say. And the reason for this is because it clearly stipulates the business terms so that no one has to spend a bunch of money on attorneys to come up with a lease agreement if both parties can't come to an agreement on the actual business terms, right? So if you want to pay $5,000 in rent and the landlord won't budge off $6,000, then there's no point in spending $500 an hour for an attorney to generate a lease agreement, because you guys aren't in agreement on the major business terms. Therefore, it's not really worth the effort or the time and money to do so. So the letter of intent, usually in a leasing situation, I almost 100% recommend that you go through that route or that exercise prior to doing so. On the purchase and sale side, it all depends on the party that is the parties that are privy to that particular transaction. In most cases, I would just send a full purchase and sale agreement to the owner of the property if I'm representing the buyer. And the reason for this is because it allows us to secure that property under contract, right? Because in a letter of intent scenario, if we send a letter of intent to the seller and we're going back and forth on a letter of intent, even if both parties sign that letter of intent, it is a non-binding agreement. So in theory, even though in the letter of intent document you stipulate that the seller will operate in good faith to work towards a purchase and sale agreement with the buyer, it is a non-binding agreement. So if a great offer comes in that the seller was that the seller's interested in taking, they can do so, and it's not necessarily going to lead to any type of legal ramifications on their end. So in most instances, I will work towards getting a purchase and sale agreement drafted or generated and sent over to the seller of a property in order to get that process going, get that process started. Now, there are instances where a letter of intent may make sense, especially if the owners are planning to hire counsel to modify and to potentially even generate a purchase and sale agreement. I've been in scenarios in the past where a seller wanted to hash out the terms of a letter of intent before going under contract, and they themselves were the ones who generated the final purchase and sale agreement. And then my client they retained counsel to be able to review the purchase and sale agreement and ultimately come to an agreement in that regard. So in a buy and sell scenario, LOI or purchase and sale agreement can both work. I tend to lean more towards getting a purchase and sale agreement in front of the owner just to secure control of that property so that you can start going through the due diligence time for the due diligence. You can start doing all the things you need to do to potentially acquire that building without having to worry that another party is going to come into the mix and sweep out the opportunity from under you. But again, going the LOI route is also an option as well. But hopefully you get some value from this video. Hopefully you now understand the nuances of both so you can make the best decision for you and your clients. And obviously now you can advise your clients a little bit more effectively based on the strategy that you feel is best based on the scenario. So hopefully you gain some value from this video. If you guys like this channel, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact on our ability to reach a broader audience, and we obviously greatly appreciate the support. Along with that, if you guys are looking to buy, sell, or lease commercial property in the Louisville metro area, I'm a commercial real estate agent in town. I'd be happy to help you with your search. Feel free to give me a call at 502-536-7315, or you can reach me via email at Raphael@sumcg.com. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.